Thanks, Mark said, looking to his now bandaged hand. No problem, Clementine said. I'm glad I could help. So, are you two alone? Mark asked. No, Sean said. We got a group with us. All here? Mark asked him. Yeah. What about you? Are you alone? Sean questioned. Yeah, Mark said. Sounds lonely. Sean commented. Mark shrugged. I guess it can be. I know. Clementine suddenly said. Why don't you come with us? Wait, what? Sean asked. Really? Mark asked. Yeah, of course, Clementine said. Sean groaned. Clem, can I talk to really quick? Sure, Clementine said. Sean took her hand, causing the teen's face to heat up. He pulled the girl to the side and out of Mark's earshot. What are you doing? He demanded. What do you mean? Clementine asked, pulling her hand out his grip. Her heart was pounding quickly. What was he doing to her? We don't know this guy. Sean reminded. You can't just invite strangers to join the group. Why not? He seems nice, Clementine said. That's no excuse, Sean said. We have no idea what he's capable of. But he's all alone, Clementine said with a frown. How would you feel if it was you? Sean looked to the girl before letting out a sigh. All right. We'll see how the group feels. Okay, Clementine said. Thanks. She knew that was the best she would get. They couldn't make the decision on their own. Right. Sean muttered. He was sure the group was going to give him hell for this. Dad, can't we leave yet? There's nothing to do here. Duck whined. They had finished their showers and went back to the front room of the base, waiting for the rest of the group. We still gotta wait on the ladies. You know girls take forever to do everything, Kenny said. That's sexist, Clementine said as they entered the room. Kenny jumped. I didn't mean anything bad by he stopped mid-sentence as he noticed Mark. Who the fuck is this guy? His name is Mark, Clementine said. I don't want any trouble, Mark said. I've been here for a while and heard that there was a group here. Yeah. Kenny huffed. What's it to you? I invited him to join us. Clementine admitted. What? Larry asked. Sean let out a sigh. Clem. Kenny groaned. Look, I hate to break it to you, man. But she's a child. She doesn't make the decisions for the group. Kenny. Clementine frowned. Please. He's alone. Who gives a damn? Larry retorted. We can't just leave him here. What if it were you? Clementine said. We have our own group to worry about. Larry replied. Please. Clementine pleaded. I have food. Mark cut in. A lot of it. Larry paused. I'll believe it when I see it. Kenny looked to Sean for confirmation. Sean gave a nod. It's true, Sean said. He has quite a bit of stuff. All right, let's see it, Kenny said. You guys ready to go? Lily's voice came, not a moment later. Who's this? Carly motioned to Sean. Name's Mark. Mark replied. He's hoping to join the group, Sean said. Lily scoffed. I don't know about that. We have enough to worry about as it is. I don't plan on being a liability, Mark stated. I have plenty of supplies. Stuff you guys could probably use. Lily fell quiet for a moment before sighing. Show us. When they arrived at the storage room, the group was more than surprised at the amount of supplies Mark had. Holy shit. Kenny muttered. This could last us for months, Carly said. Lily frowned. Are you the only survivor? That's what it looks like, Mark said. Anyone else that survived probably fled when they got the chance. Why didn't you? Sean asked. The place was surrounded. Plus, there was no way I was going to leave all this stuff, Mark said. Fair point, Sean said. Yet you're willing to share? Lily asked. Well, I want to get out of here. You guys seem like some okay folks and I'd say it's a pretty fair trade, Mark said. Deal, Kenny said. Lily rolled her eyes. Are you serious? We don't know this guy. Hell yeah, I'm serious. Look at all this shit, Kenny said. I see it. We can make do on our own, like we have been, Lily said. Yeah, Larry said. We don't need no handouts. You guys don't have to go on the runs. Do you know how much of a risk that is? Kenny said. Every time we go out there, we face the risk of not coming back. And we appreciate it, Katja said. We really do, Ken. Obviously she doesn't. Kenny grumbled, motioning towards Lily. Guys, stop fighting, Clementine said. The drugstore is eventually going to run out of supplies. If you guys don't want to leave the motor inn, then this is our best bet. The group knew the teen's words were true. Okay, Lily said. She suddenly shot Mark a glare. Don't make me regret this. I don't plan to, Mark said. The men gathered the supplies and started packing their vehicles with it. Clementine offered to help, but Kenny and Sean claimed it was too heavy for her. You just stay close to Kat, Kenny had said. Clementine knew arguing was pointless. She was just tired of being treated like a little kid. After taking out several walkers outside, they finished putting the supplies into the cars. Then the group headed back to the motor inn. Clementine was glad that the trip had gone smoothly. Not only that, but they had managed to get some supplies and find a new group member. Maybe things were starting to look up. When they returned to the motel, Katja had checked on Clementine's bullet wound after seeing the girl painfully clutching her arm. It's not bleeding, you'll probably be sore for a few more weeks, Katja said. Okay, Clementine said. How do you feel? Katja asked. I'm fine, Clementine replied. The girl was quiet for a moment. Katja, can I ask you something? Sure, sweetie, Katja said with a smile. Clementine swallowed, feeling a bit nervous. What is it, Clem? Katja urged the girl to go on. Earlier. When I was with Sean, I felt weird, Clementine said. Weird? Katja asked in a serious voice. What do you mean? Not in a bad way. Clementine clarified. My heart was pounding. And I kept getting butterflies, like I was nervous. Katja smiled. I see. I never felt like that before around him, Clementine said. It sounds like you have a crush, Katja said. A what? Clementine asked, blushing a bit. You like Sean, Katja said. Oh no. Clementine shook her head. It's okay, crushes aren't a big deal, Katja said. They go away just as fast as they come. Okay, Clementine said. Please don't tell anyone. I won't. It's between us, sweetie, Katja said. Thank you, Clementine said. The next day was completely awkward for Clementine. The girl's mind was busy. She had noticed how flustered she now felt whenever Sean was around her. She tried to ignore it, to say it was nothing. But deep inside her, she knew that wasn't true. Clementine and Sean sitting in a tree. Kissing, Duck teased. Clementine's eyes widened and she quickly looked around to make sure no one had heard the boy. Stop it. How do you even know about that? I heard you and Mommy talking. Duck answered. You like Sean. You like Sean. Shut up, Clementine said. I don't. Then why are you blushing? Duck asked. I'm not. Clementine claimed. But, there's a bug on you, Clementine exclaimed. Duck immediately jumped. Get it off, get it off. If you promise to never talk about this again, Clementine said. I promise, Duck said. Clementine reached to Duck's shoulder, pretending to grab the bug that was never there. It's off. Duck sighed in relief. Thanks. You saved me. Don't break your promise, Clementine said. I won't, Duck said. The child went back to coloring. Clementine stood up and walked away. She let out a sigh. Thinking about Sean just confused her so much. She tried to focus on other things, but to no avail. Maybe she needed some advice, but who would she talk to? The girl was lost in her thoughts. She didn't notice Carly approach her until the woman spoke. You like Sean? Carly's voice made the teen jump. What? Clementine stammered. It's pretty obvious, Carly giggled. You've been watching him for a while. Clementine's face immediately went red. No need to be embarrassed, it's normal, Carly said. It's weird. I don't know how to act around him, Clementine said. I wouldn't worry too much, Carly said. It's hard not to, Clementine said. I know. But crushes come and go, Carly said. I guess, Clementine said. It'll be all right, Carly assured her. Clementine only hoped so. Her feelings didn't change. In fact, the more she was around Sean, the stronger those feelings became. Sean was always so nice to her, but he thought of her as a kid. She didn't know what to do. Lily. Clementine called to the woman as the two looked over their food rations for the day. Yeah, Clem? Lily asked. Clementine hesitated for a moment. Can I ask you something? Sure. What's up? Lily questioned. Well, how do you know when you're in love? Love? Lily asked. Why are you asking me that? Clementine lowered her head, not answering. Lily raised a brow, before sighing. Is it Sean? Clementine nodded. You're not in love, Lily told her. How do you know? Clementine said. There's no way. Puppy love maybe. But I'm sure it's just a crush, Lily said. It's so weird around him, Clementine said. Want some advice? Lily asked. Yes please. Clementine nodded. I say forget about him. You're still a kid. It wouldn't work, Lily simply said. Clementine didn't respond. I know it's not easy, but you're only going to get your heart broken, Lily said. Clementine frowned, feeling a bit hurt by those words. But Lily cut her off. It'll be better that way. Don't get your hopes up. He's an adult and you're not. I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's a fact. Clementine sighed. Try to forget about the crush, Lily said. Clementine knew that was easier said than done. As time went on, Mark became an accepted part of the group, for the most part anyway. Lily and Larry tended to have spats with him every so often, but Lily tended to have spats with most of the group members and Larry was of course on her side because that was his daughter. Lily seemed to have a problem with Kenny in particular. Both of them wanted to be in charge. And when things didn't go their way, everyone around them paid for it. Clementine was getting sick of the fighting, and she felt completely guilty when the two adults fought over her. Kenny had taken the role of a father figure for Clementine, but she was also extremely close with Lily. Both Kenny and Lily had opposing opinions on what Clementine should and shouldn't be allowed to do. Whenever Clementine wanted to go on a run, Kenny would often tell her she couldn't go. And it didn't help that most of the group backed him up. Clementine didn't want to be treated like a child. She was determined to prove just how capable she was on tomorrow's run, which despite Kenny's and Sean's protest, Lily had given her the okay to go on. But the next day, to her surprise, Kenny, Mark, and Sean were gone by time she had woken up. Clementine felt angry and hurt. She didn't understand why they had just ditched her. She spent the rest of the day keeping an eye on Duck, which she really figured was Katjaa's excuse to make sure she stayed at the motor inn. When Kenny, Mark and Sean had returned, Clementine demanded to know why they ditched her. It's dangerous out there, you know that, darling, Kenny responded. But I can help. I'm not a child, Clementine said. I beg to differ. Kenny scoffed, turning to walk away. Don't be mad, kiddo. Sean gave the girl a pat on the head. We didn't do anything fun out there. Clementine flushed a bit before quickly sending him a glare. She noticed Mark sent her an apologetic look. I didn't think they'd just leave like that, Mark admitted. It's okay, Mark. It wasn't your fault, Clementine said, shooting Sean another look. Sean only shrugged in response. Clementine headed over to where Kenny had gone, catching up with the man. Kenny, we need to talk. Do we? Kenny asked. Yes, Clementine said in a serious voice. I'd appreciate it if you stopped treating me like a little kid. Uh-huh. Kenny responded, without looking to the girl. You're not even listening to me. Clementine huffed. Course I am, Kenny said. Clementine frowned. It was obvious that he wasn't paying attention. She followed him to the RV, where Lily was up keeping watch. How'd it go? Lily asked. Good, considering we didn't die, Kenny said. Lily ignored the last part. Well, that's good. They left me, Clementine told the woman with a frown. Why is that? Lily asked Kenny. It's too dangerous. No child needs to be out there, Kenny stated. I'm not a child, Clementine argued. Yeah, you are. Last time I checked, 14 was still a kid, Kenny said. I'm 15, almost 16, Clementine corrected. Big difference. Kenny grumbled. The fact of the matter is, it's not safe. You don't need to be out there. Kenny, you can't rule over everything she does, Lily said. You're not her dad. Yeah, well, her parents aren't around. Someone's got to take charge of her, Kenny said. She can handle herself, Lily said. You can't make a call on what she chooses. You don't even care what happens. She could die out there and you don't give a damn, Kenny snapped. Of course I care, Lily argued. But she deserves a chance to show she can help. She's proven to be capable more than once. Whatever. Once again I'm the bad guy all because I'm trying to keep people safe, Kenny said. This is fucking bullshit. Clementine frowned as she watched Kenny storm off. Don't worry about him, Lily said. You know he can't tell you what to do. He's not your dad. I know, Clementine said. But he was the closest thing she had to one at the moment. Clementine suddenly felt a sadness gripping at her heart at the thought of her parents. She missed them more than anything, and seeing everyone else with their families only made that worse. The teen walked back to her room and stayed there for the rest of the day. Clementine. Clementine looked around at the sudden call of her name. She knew that voice. Clementine. Came the voice again. It only took the teen a moment to realize she was in her house again. Sandra? Clementine called. She searched for her friend. Walking through the hallway, her feet were moving on their own. She stopped once she reached her bedroom. The door was closed. Clementine's hand hovered over the door, heart pounding. Clementine. Sandra sounded like she was in trouble. Clementine quickly opened the door. Sandra? Her friend was sitting on the bed, a small smile on her face. Sandra? Clementine slowly entered the room. Are you okay? Sandra was silent for a moment before speaking. We're waiting for you. Clementine was confused by those words. What? Me. Your parents. Everyone else, Sandra said. We're waiting for you. Waiting? Waiting for me to what? Clementine asked. To join us. Sandra replied. Join? Clementine stammered. Join you? We're waiting for you to become like us, Sandra said. Clementine jumped as the door suddenly shut behind her. Sandra moved from the bed and Clementine took a step back. You're going to die. You're going to die and become like us. Sandra suddenly turned into a walker, jumping towards Clementine with a growl. Clementine screamed. Clementine woke up with a gasp. She couldn't stop herself from trembling. She missed her family. It hurt knowing that there was a chance she would never see her parents again. Sure, the group was kind and all, they looked out for her, but they weren't her mom and dad. Clementine felt tears come to her eyes. She would give anything to have her parents back. Anything at all. Days flew by and things didn't go any further uphill. Clementine felt alone again. She had no one to talk to. She couldn't stop thinking about her family. She missed them more than anything. Every time she did, she was haunted by horrible nightmares. Depression was setting in full force. She felt like she was sinking in a hole with no one to pull her out. She wouldn't lie and say she didn't think about taking the easy way out. But she pushed those thoughts to the back of her mind for the sake of the group. The girl made her way outside, unable to force herself to sleep. She stood outside for a while, enjoying the silence. The girl was brought back to reality when she felt a raindrop hit her face. She didn't know how long she had been out there, but she hadn't even realized it was raining. The rain grew harder quickly. Clementine jumped when she heard a door open. It's really pouring out here, came a voice. Sean. The girl felt her heart start pounding. Whoa, kid, what are you doing out here? Sean asked her. I needed some air, Clementine said, trying to keep her voice normal. Air? In this weather? Sean shook his head. You're gonna get soaked out here. Sean's hand touched the girl's cheek, gently brushing her wet hair. Come on, I'll take you back inside. No. I'm okay. Sean cut the girl off. Relax. We gotta get you dry or you'll catch a cold. Clementine didn't bother to protest any further. Sean led Clementine inside. They could hear the roar of thunder outside. The rain's getting harder, Clementine commented. Yeah. So much for going on watch. Sean shrugged. Clementine watched as Sean reached for a nearby towel. Here, We should dry your hair or you'll catch a cold, Sean said. Before she could say anything, Sean was using the towel to dry her hair. Clementine's cheeks flushed. Soon Sean pulled back and frowned. Are you okay? Your face is flushed. I hope you're not catching a fever. I'm fine, Clementine said rather quickly. I'm okay. You sure? Why, yeah. She nodded. All right. You should get some rest, Sean said. Okay, Clementine said. Night, Sean said to her. Good night, Clementine replied. She let out a sigh when Sean was gone. She was well aware of her crush at this point, yet her feelings still confused her. Ever since that day at the base, she blushed every time he was around her. She couldn't even look Sean in the eye anymore. She couldn't understand why she felt this way. It was obvious Sean only thought of her as a kid. The thought made her feel a bit sadder. Clementine let out a sigh and climbed into the bed, trying to sleep, with no luck. The next morning the sky was so clear it was hard to believe how hard it had stormed the night before. Clementine felt her face heat up with the embarrassment of seeing Sean again. She was so nervous. When she went outside, the group was already having breakfast. Clementine sat down, trying her best to act normal. Morning, Clem. Sean greeted. Gee, good morning, Clementine said back. How'd you sleep? Sean asked her. Okay, Clementine replied. That's good to hear, Sean said. Yeah, Clementine said. He was talking like nothing happened. Clementine realized he didn't feel in the least bit awkward. Clementine felt silly feeling this way when Sean didn't feel anything for her. He only thought of her as a kid. The girl looked up when she felt a hand on her forehead. Sean's hand. He was feeling her forehead. You're flushed again, you sure you didn't catch a cold? Sean asked. I'm sure. Clementine squeezed. Clementine likes Sean. Duck suddenly blurted out. Clementine's face went red. Kenny looked to Clementine with wide eyes. Sean also looked surprised. Everyone went silent for a moment. What? Kenny exclaimed. Clementine wordlessly stood up. Clem? Sean called. The girl ignored him as she turned her back and ran for her room. She hadn't wanted Sean to know about her feelings. She knew it would only burden him. Sean frowned as the girl ran off. I can't believe this, Kenny grumbled. What does she see in you? Sean raised a brow at that. He couldn't be offended though. He was too worried about Clementine. I should talk to her, Sean said. Are you sure that's a good idea? Lily asked. Maybe you should just leave her alone for a while. Sean shook his head. I have to talk to her. Okay, Lily said. Just be careful. I will, Sean replied. Clementine laid in bed, a million thoughts running wild in her mind. The girl heard a knock on her door and tried to ignore it. Clem? Sean spoke. Can I come in? Go away. Please, Clementine said. There was no answer for a moment and she thought he had done as she said, but suddenly she heard the door open and someone enter the room. Clementine, I want to talk to you, Sean said to her. Clementine kept quiet. Please. What is it? Clementine asked, sitting up to look at the young man. Is it true? Sean asked, getting straight to the point. What Duck said. Clementine fell quiet again. She didn't want to answer that. Wasn't it obvious enough? Sean let out a sigh after a few moments and started to leave. Yes, Clementine muttered. Hearing her words, Sean halted and turned to her once more. What? I like you. I really like you, Sean. Clementine admitted. Sean frowned. Walking towards her bed, he took a seat. I'm sorry, Clem. Clementine didn't want to hear it. She knew what he was going to say. I really am sorry, Sean continued. I care about you. And I like you too, but not like that. Even though she had already known it, hearing him say that made her want to cry. Why? Clementine whimpered. She felt her heart breaking in her chest. You're just a kid, Sean said. Clementine didn't respond. Sean offered her a kind smile. He felt terrible doing this to her. I want you to be happy, Clem. He took her, placing a hand on her head. I don't want to hurt you. You won't, Clementine said. But it hurt right now. You've got a lot of growing up to do, Clementine. Sean told her. You're still just a little girl. Clementine felt absolutely broken by his words. I want to be alone. Sean couldn't blame her. Okay. Sean turned and walked away, and Clementine felt her heart break again. She heard the door shut as she buried her head under her pillow. The echo of Sean's word hung thick in the air, and she cried until she had no tears left to shed. She had just experienced her first heartbreak from someone she really liked. Clementine had tried her best to act indifferent the next day, but it was hard. Despite getting revenge by putting bugs in Duck's bed, she still felt hurt. And as satisfying as it was hearing Duck scream like a girl because of her little prank, she was too sad to be happy. She tried her best to appear normal, but deep down her depression was only worse than it had been before. She didn't want the group to worry about her, but Clementine was starting to wonder what the point of going on was. Seeing everyone else with their families only made it worse. Larry's protectiveness over Lily reminded her of her own father, and seeing Duck with his parents made her miss her mom and dad even more. Sure, Kenny and Cat Jar made her feel like a member of their family, but they weren't the same as her real parents. It would be so easy to just be with her family again. The girl quickly shook that thought away. She couldn't do that. The group cared about her, even if they only thought of her as some stupid kid. Clementine bit her lip. She was fed up with being treated like she couldn't do anything. It was time for her to grow up. Sean's words were proof of that. Either that or she had to leave. Perhaps the group would be better off without her. She wouldn't be a burden any longer. And if leaving meant taking her own life, so be it. Her parents were waiting, Sandra was waiting, but something was stopping Clementine. She knew she wasn't the only one without a family. Carly didn't have anyone here, nor did Mark. And Sean. Well, she had saw what happened to Sean's family firsthand. If they had the strength to keep going, Clementine needed to find that strength too. Unfortunately, things didn't stay good. As the weeks turned into months, the supplies, that had been so much at the time, started to run out. The group was forced to take on more hunting runs. The group members started to clash more. Lily and Kenny couldn't get along for even 5 minutes. It seemed like the two feuded over every little thing. Clementine and Lily did their best to ration food whenever they handed it out. Clementine was starting to feel bad, knowing that some days there wouldn't be enough food for everyone. There were many times when she would offer her own share up, which concerned the group. The girl obviously wasn't eating properly, and it was clear to both Lily and Carly that she wasn't sleeping well. The girl's personality had taken a complete turn from her usually positive self to a gloomy teen, who was completely withdrawn and kept to herself. "Thanks for waiting for me," Clementine said. "No problem. I wasn't going to let them take off on you again," Mark said. Clementine appreciated that. At least a couple people didn't treat her like a kid. They paused for a moment when they noticed a walker eating something. Mark raised his gun to shoot the walker. Clementine raised a hand. "We can take him out quietly. Save that ammo for food." Mark nodded in agreement. Drawing a knife from his pocket, he crept up on the walker and stabbed it in the head. "Damn. What did it get this time?" Mark grumbled as Clementine checked what the walker had been eating. Clementine furrowed her brows. "I think it's a rabbit," she said, cringing a bit at the thought. "Well, that's another meal lost. I still can't believe we went through all that commissary food in 3 months. It seemed like so much at the time," Mark said. "Yeah. Well, we have a pretty big group. I guess we didn't think about how fast we'd go through it," Clementine replied. "When I accidentally grabbed for Carly's rations the other night, I thought she was gonna take off my hand," Mark said. "I think everyone's on edge. People have a hard time functioning when they're hungry," Clementine said. "Yeah, you're right. You've been helping with the rations. You know for sure how much food we have?" Mark asked. "Not much. Probably a week's worth at the most," Clementine admitted. "Kenny's not happy about this whole setup. You know, with Lily handling the rations. And having a kid help her. No offense. He's just worried about his family." "I get it," Clementine said. "You think him and Sean are having any more luck than we are?" Mark asked. "Hopefully," Clementine said. "Speaking of Sean, how are things between you two?" Mark asked. Clementine frowned. She didn't want to talk about Sean. "Fine." Clementine tried to avoid him as much as she could. It was better that way, because she still couldn't bring herself to look at him without her heart aching. Well, that's good, Mark said. He knew things were far from fine, but Clementine obviously didn't want to talk about it. You know, between the lack of food and Kenny and Lily fighting all the time, things are getting pretty tense back at the motor inn. And Kenny keeps talking about taking off if he can get that RV running, Mark said. I know, Clementine said. Kenny had offered her to join them when they took off. Hell, it wasn't an offer, he had decided himself that Clementine was tagging along, claiming she was his responsibility. Can't blame him, though. Did you hear Larry going off on him last night? What's the old guy's deal anyway? Mark questioned. Clementine just shrugged in response. Larry was okay to her. He never went off on her like he did to everyone else. I know Lily thinks he's getting weaker, but the guy's all muscle. He's a walking piledriver. I know I wouldn't want to be stuck in a room with him, Mark said. The two stopped again, stopping a bird on a branch of a tree. Mark quickly aimed his gun at the bird. Think you can hit it? Clementine asked. I can try, Mark said. They knew one bird wouldn't be enough to feed the group, but hell, they were desperate. Mark took the shot, missing. Damn, he said as the bird flew away. Well, that sucks, Clementine sighed. Yeah, Mark agreed. We should. Clementine was cut off by a sudden scream. Shit. Mark swore. What the hell was that? I don't know, Clementine said. The two exchanged looks before they began running towards the noise. Eventually they stopped and were surprised to find two teen boys, maybe a few years older than Clementine, and a man on the ground, foot stuck in a bear trap. Mark and Clementine exchanged looks of horror as they noticed the man on the ground. Jesus Christ! Mark muttered. Two teen boys looked to Clementine and Mark, and one of them started to panic. Oh shit. No. No. Please don't kill us. We just want to help our teacher. We'll leave, I swear. Are you guys okay? Came Kenny's voice, as he and Sean arrived at the location. Holy shit, Sean said, seeing the man whose leg was stuck in the bear trap. The man on the ground let out another yell. Get it off. Get it off, goddammit, get it off me. Travis, maybe they can help, spoke the taller teen. These might be the same guys that raided our camp and we barely got away from that, Travis replied. What guys? Mark questioned. Why the fuck is there a bear trap out here? Kenny demanded, obviously confused. We're not going to hurt you, Clementine said. We want to help. The taller teen looked to the younger girl. Mr. Parker said we should stay off the streets. We were trying to be careful, but he was cut off as Mr. Parker let out another pained groan. Guys, this is fucked up. We've got to help him, Mark said. Please. The taller teen pleaded. Ben, shut up, Travis snapped. My dad was Special Forces, I know what I'm doing. Ben ignored his friend. Just see if you can get him out. After that you can leave us or whatever. I don't care. Please. We got to help them, Clementine said, sending the three men in her group a pleading look. Please. Sean let out a sigh. Okay, we'll do what we can. Thank you. Mr. Parker said. Thank you so much. Fine, but we gotta hurry, Kenny said. Mark gave a nod and knelt down to check the bear trap. His brows furrowed. Guys, this trap's been altered. There's no release latch. Clementine jumped when she heard sudden snarls coming from the woods. She quickly reached for her gun. Oh, no. Travis muttered, also spotting the walkers. Kenny huffed, shit. Walkers. It's now or never, guys. Sean frowned, trying to get the trap to release. It's not going to work, Mark said. Please. Get me out of this. Mr. Parker begged frantically. Quiet down, Sean said. I'm trying to help you. The injured man nodded and tried his best to quiet down. Mark, get the boys back. Kenny, keep those walkers off of me, Sean said. Mark nodded. The two teens moved back and Clementine, Kenny and Mark started shooting at approaching walkers. Sean began trying to break the chain, but it was no use. After a couple moments of trying to free the man, Sean realized there was only one way to get this man out. His heart dropped. Sean, do something. Clementine called, noticing Sean's hesitation. Sean sent the man an apologetic look. I'm going to have to cut you out. No, no, no. Try the trap again. Anything, please. Mr. Parker panicked. Try to cut the chain, Travis said. That's not working, Sean replied. Raising the axe he was carrying, he brought it down onto Mr. Parker's leg, causing the man to scream. Clementine gasped. The girl quickly clenched her eyes shut, not wanting to see. Kenny glanced over to the now frozen teen and swore. Fuck. He couldn't help her now, he just continued shooting while making sure to keep an eye out for her. Mr. Parker continued to scream each time Sean brought down the axe. Let's go, Kenny ordered. Sean didn't say anything, he just kept his focus on the task at hand. Trying his best not to stop due to the man's screams. He had to keep repeating in his mind that he was helping this guy. He was helping him. Eventually Sean had completely severed the man's leg. The man looked at his bleeding stump before his eyes rolled back into his head. Mark and Travis quickly approached. Travis grew pale at the sight. Throwing a hand over his mouth, he moved away and started throwing up. Shit. Is he? Mark asked. I think he passed out, Sean said. If he's alive, grab him and let's go, Kenny said, approaching Clementine. He placed his hand on the terrified teen's shoulder. It's all right. Let's get out of here. Clementine nodded. Mark quickly grabbed the unconscious man, following after Kenny. Sean looked to where Travis was, his eyes growing wide. Behind you. He called to the teen. Travis, Ben yelled, trying to go towards his friend. Sean quickly grabbed Ben, stopping the boy. We gotta get out of here, kid. Sean knew they couldn't help the poor boy. Travis wiped his mouth and looked to the walkers that were closing in on him. Backing up, the boy clumsily tripped and soon after met his fate. No, Ben yelled. The group hurried back towards the motor inn. Clementine only hoped that the injured man would survive. He clearly wasn't doing well and she knew they didn't have the supplies to keep the man alive. There was a high chance that he would bleed out. Come on. Kenny ordered as the group arrived at the motel. Get the gates open. We've got wounded. Sean called. Shit. What the hell are they doing? Lily huffed. The gates were quickly opened as the rest of the group rushed over, immediately asking questions. What happened? Kajar asked. Mark motioned to the man he was carrying. Where should I put him? Who the hell are they? Larry demanded, looking at the strangers. What's going on? Carly asked. Get him into the truck, I'll see what I can do. Kajar told Mark. Mark gave a nod and with Ben's help, he placed the unconscious man in the truck. Kat, can you fix him? Kenny asked. Jesus, Ken, I don't know, Kajar said. What the hell? You can't just be bringing new people here. What are you thinking? Lily yelled. Hey, you wanna calm down for a fucking minute? Hey. Watch your mouth. Larry growled at Kenny in defense of his daughter. No, I don't. I want to know why you thought bringing more mouths to feed was a good idea? Lily replied to Kenny. He would have died if we left him, Clementine said. So what? Larry retorted. We are not responsible for every struggling survivor we come across. We have to focus on our group. Right here. Right now, Lily said. Well, hang on. We haven't even talked to these people yet. Maybe that can be helpful, Carly said. Come on, Lily. These are people. People trying to survive just like us. We've got to stick together to survive. Mark added. Lily shot him a glare. The only reason you're here is because you had food. Enough for all of us. But that food is almost gone. We've got maybe a week's worth left, and I don't suppose you guys carrying any groceries, are you? No, Ben said. Mark shook his head in annoyance. Fine. You guys fight it out then. Welcome to the family, kid. Is this really necessary? Clementine asked. Why do you guys always have to fight? Clementine, go play with Duck, Kenny said. Clementine rolled her eyes. I'm not a kid, Kenny. I'm not going to argue with you, darling, Kenny said. Go. Don't tell her what to do? Lily said. Why not? I'm the only one who's actually looking out for the kid. Kenny responded. That's not true and you know it, Lily said. It is. Kenny huffed. Just because we don't treat her like a little kid doesn't mean we don't care about her, Lily said. Exactly, Larry said. She can handle herself. The girl doesn't need anyone babying her. I'm sick of you undermining me, Kenny said. And you guys have her going against me now. You're not her dad, so stop acting like it, Larry said. Please, stop fighting, Clementine said. It's no use, Clem. Why didn't you talk to the new kid, see if we can trust him? Sean said, whispering the last part to her. Okay, Clementine sighed. She walked to Ben and said, they'll probably be doing this for a while. Let's go sit down. Ben stammered. Just come on, Clementine said. The boy nodded and followed after her. You know, you like to think you are the leader of this little group, but we can make our own goddamn decisions. This isn't your own personal dictatorship, Kenny snapped at Lily. Oh, come on. You're being dramatic. Everything always turns into a power struggle between you two. I'm not gonna be a part of that, Carly said, rolling her eyes and walking away. Hey, I didn't ask to lead this group. Everyone was happy to have me distributing the food when there was enough to go around, but now that it's running out, suddenly I'm a goddamn Nazi. Lily replied. I'm going to have to agree with Kenny here. Sean spoke up. You might be in charge of the food, but it doesn't make you in charge of people's lives. Lily sent Sean a glare as Kenny stormed off. I don't see any of you stepping up to make the hard decisions. My girl's got more balls than all of you combined, Larry said. Dad, please. Why don't you go help Mark with the wall? Lily sighed. You think this is easy for me? Because it's not. Everyone's starting to hate me now. You know what, you handle the rations today, Sean. Since you think you can do so much better than me. I never said that, Lily, Sean said. I don't want to hear it, Lily said. Here's today's food rations, there's not enough for everyone. Sean accepted the food with a frown, knowing Lily wasn't going to take no for an answer. He'd make sure the kids were fed first of all, then he would go from there. He quickly spotted Duck, who was coloring. Clementine was sitting beside the child. Sean wanted to talk to the girl. She'd been avoiding him for the past few months, but before he could head over he noticed the teenager stand off and make her way towards Katja, not ever sparing him glance as she passed him. I'm Clementine. And you are? Clementine asked the teenager boy. Ben Paul. The man over there is Mr. Parker. He was the band director at my school. We all came down from Stone Mountain for the playoffs. When everything happened, Ben replied. Tough, Clementine commented. Yeah, Ben frowned. I keep wondering if I could have done something to help, you know? Some kind of. I don't know. Something. I'm sure you did all you could, Clementine reassured. I wish, Ben replied. Do you think he'll be okay? Katja will do her best to fix him up, Clementine said. All right, Ben muttered. I'll go see if I can help, Clementine said. Ben only nodded. Clementine stood up and made her way over to Katja. How's he looking? Not so good, Katja said. Can you give me a hand real quick? Of course, Clementine said. Just apply some pressure here while I try to close this up. You know, I thought I was starting to get used to this, sewing up people's injuries, but, I mean, cuts and bruises are one thing, but, this man has no leg, Katja said. We couldn't just leave him, Clementine said. Yeah, I know. Katja muttered. You guys did the right thing. The right thing is just scary sometimes. The two fell silent. Clementine continued to help Katja with whatever she needed. Clementine didn't know how much time had passed as they worked on the man, but it proved to be in vain, as the teen checked for a pulse, unable to find one. Katja tried to revive the man, with no success. Clementine wanted to cry. She had expected it, but it didn't make it any easier. It was stuff like this that made her wonder what was the point in trying to survive, when all of them would end up like this anyway. Sean. Come here, please. Katja called. Kenny and Sean approached shortly after. He didn't make it, did he? Kenny asked, already knowing the answer. He lost too much blood, Katja said. Damn it. I'm getting sick of this shit, Kenny said. Ken, come back. Katja called to her husband. There's nothing. Give him some time. It's been a rough morning, Sean said. He glanced over to Clementine, who was wearing a frown on her face. You okay, kid? Clementine shook her head, before walking away without a word. Katja frowned at the teen's reaction, looking back to Sean. That man you brought, I tried, but he was never going to survive. I figured, Sean said. I guess we just hoped he would somehow have a chance. What about the other kid? Katja asked. Sean shrugged. Lily W. Suddenly Katja was grabbed from behind. Sean's eyes grew wide and he quickly started to yank Katja away from the walker that had once been Mr. Parker. After getting the walker off the woman, Sean struggled with the creature for a while. He was surprised by the strength of the walker, as he tried to keep it from biting him, until Carly finally shot it. You okay? Carly asked. Yeah. Thanks, Sean said. Why'd you bring him here in the first place, asshole? Larry spat. Dad, calm down, Lily said. You're gonna get us all killed, Larry continued to yell. Katja, are you okay? Clementine asked the woman, looking concerned. I'm fine, dear, Katja said once she calmed down a bit. Why didn't you tell us he was bitten? Kenny snapped at Ben. What? Ben asked. He was bitten and you didn't say a goddamn word. Kenny growled. What? But he wasn't bitten. I swear, Ben said. Well, your not bitten friend here came back to life and tried to kill my wife. Kenny told him. What? Wait, you don't know? Ben asked. What the hell are you talking about? Kenny demanded. It's not the bite that does it. You come back no matter how you die. If you don't destroy the brain, that's just what happens. It's gonna happen to all of us, Ben said. We're all infected? Everyone? Clementine asked. I guess so. I don't know. All I know is that I've seen people turn who I know were never bitten. When I first say it happened, we were all hiding out in the gym. Everybody thought we were finally safe. But one of the girls, Jenny Pitcher I guess she couldn't take it. She took some pills. A lot of them. Someone went in the girl's room the next morning and Ben trailed off. Back off. Everyone turned in surprise at Carly's sudden shout. Whoa, lady, relax. Me and my brother, we just want to know if y'all can help us out. A man spoke from outside the wall. Can y'all spare a little gas? I said back off, Carly yelled, aiming her gun at the two unknown men. Carly. Lily muttered. Are you armed? Sean asked. Yeah. For protection. Dead could be anywhere. A second man spoke. But, I think you've got the upper hand here, said the first man. Clearly. Kenny grumbled. We don't want any trouble. I'm Andy St. John. This is my brother, Dan. We were out looking for gasoline. The man, now introduced as Andy, said. Looks like you folks got the motel locked down, which is fine, but if you could spare any gas we'd be much obliged. Why do you need gas? Carly demanded. Our place is protected by an electric fence. Generators provide the electricity. Dan replied. Our generators run on gas. Look, we own a dairy farm a few miles up the road. If you'll be willing to lower your guns, we can talk about some kind of trade. Andy added. How are y'all doing on food? We got plenty at the dairy. Dan informed them. Sean, why don't you and Mark check the place out, see if it seems legit? Lily suggested. I'm going with you. I got your back if anything seems fishy, Carly said. I'll go too. Clementine offered. Kenny shook his head. You stay here. Clementine started to protest. But Kenny's right. We don't know what we're dealing with. We'll let them check it out, Lily said. Clementine's face fell. Okay. So, what are y'all thinking? Andy asked. You got a deal. We'll bring some gas to your dairy. In exchange you give us some food to bring back. We'll see how it goes from there. Sean replied. Andy nodded. Sounds fair. A couple gallons should power one of our generators for a while. Sean, Carly, Mark, and Ben followed the two brothers, Andy and Danny, toward the dairy men claimed to own. It seemed fair enough, a trade of gas for a trade of food. The group only hoped that the brothers were as kind as they were acting. So, this dairy. You guys really have food? Mark asked. Sure do. Andy answered with a smile. Well, we lost most of the cattle, but we still have lots of milk, butter, and cheese stocked up. And with the vegetables we grow, we've got plenty of food, Danny added. Well, that's great to hear, Sean said. I think I speak for everyone when I say we're pretty hungry. You won't have to worry about that. A deal's a deal. You were kind enough to give us some gas, and now we got to keep up our end of the bargain, Andy said. The group exchanged looks continuing to the dairy. Honestly, it's nice to get away from that motel for a while. This Lily/Kenny thing is starting to get ridiculous, Carly said. Tell me about it, Sean said. I'm worried about Clem, Carly said. I don't know. She's been acting different. In what way? Sean questioned. She seems more depressed, Carly stated. Well, who isn't depressed? Sean replied. She's still a kid. Don't forget that, Carly said. Can't imagine what's going on in her mind. You think it's my fault? Sean questioned. What? Carly asked. For rejecting her. I don't know. Sean said. No. It has to be more than that, Carly said. Maybe you should talk to her. Sean suggested. Me? Carly asked. Why me? I don't think Clem really wants to speak with me right now. She's still upset, Sean said. Besides, you two are pretty close. She'll get over it, Carly said. Kids always get silly crushes. They don't last. I know, Sean said. I just feel bad. Don't. I'll talk to her when we get back, Carly said. Okay, Sean said. You all seem pretty settled in at that motor inn. Who's running things over there? Andy suddenly inquired. We all work together, Sean said. Everyone looking out for each other. I hear that. There's so many dumbasses out there fighting each other these days, Andy said. It's just stupid. How many people you got over there anyway? Danny asked. We have a big group, Sean said, keeping his answer vague. I see, Andy said. Well, we'd love to get you all out to the dairy. Like I said, we've got plenty of food, and quite frankly, we could always use an extra helping hand. In the summers, I used to help out on the goat farm, Ben informed. That's great. Everything helps, Danny said. Andy let out a hum. Mama's been running the dairy for as long as I can remember, but now it's getting. Andy was interrupted by an angry voice snapping, You think you're gonna cut me out of this? Shit. Andy swore. Get down. The group quickly did as he said, crouching low, as not to be seen. From their hidden position, they could see two men arguing. Fucking bandits, Danny whispered. Those look like the people who raided my camp. Ben informed the others. Who are they? Sean asked. Shh, Andy whispered. Fucking assholes is who they are. There's only two of them, Carly stated. Oh no. There's a lot more, Danny said. Don't worry. Danny and I got you covered if something happens, but let's just wait this out, Andy said. Hope they move on. You guys don't think it's... I don't know. Kind of weird that those people came out of nowhere asking us for gas? Clementine questioned the other group members. Why do you say that? Lily asked the girl. I just got a strange feeling about them. How do we know we can trust them? Clementine said. We don't, Lily said. We don't trust anyone. Don't forget that. So why send our group members to the dairy? Clementine asked. Sometimes you got to take a risk, Lily said. If they have food, we need it. And what if it's a trap? Clementine worried. Why would they want to trap anyone? Larry questioned. I don't know, Clementine said. It just seems weird. Like maybe they've been watching us or something. Lily furrowed her brows. Kenny let out a sigh. Don't be ridiculous, Clem. I'm not. Think about it. Seriously, why show up now? Clementine asked. Don't worry so much. Everything will be fine, Lily said. I sure hope so, Clementine sighed. It will be, Lily said. I don't understand why Ben got to go and I had to stay here. Clementine huffed. That's completely unfair. Clementine, that's enough. No one is in the mood to hear you complain, Kenny said. Then you should have let me go. You wouldn't have to hear anything from me. Clementine grumbled. It's dangerous, Kenny said. Everything is dangerous. I'd appreciate it if you all stopped treating me like a kid. Clementine walked off, feeling annoyed. Hey guys, Carly said. You're back, Lily sighed in relief. She had been worried that Clementine was right about it being a trap. Yeah, Carly said. How was it? Lily asked. Looks untouched, Carly said. Is it safe? Lily questioned. Appears to be, Carly said. They say they're going to make a big dinner for the group, Ben said. Larry gave a smile. Pretty nice of them. Yeah, Carly agreed. And they gave us these biscuits. Lily looked into the basket and tisked. The basket is more than half empty. She commented. About that, Carly said. We got a little hungry on the way here. Lily rolled her eyes. We have a problem. What? Carly asked. We can't all go to this dairy, Lily said. Why not? Ben asked. We can't leave the motel unattended. Who knows how long we'll be gone, Lily said. Well, since we ate some of the biscuits, Ben and I can stay behind. If you guys are gone too long, we'll come looking for you, Carly said. Lily gave a nod. All right. With that settled, Carly looked over to Clementine, who was sitting alone. The teen looked lost in thought, which had become usual for the girl. Carly decided to check on the girl. Hey Clem. Clementine jumped as if startled. Hey. How are you doing? Carly asked the teen. Fine, I guess, Clementine said. I noticed you've been pretty active lately, Carly said. Yeah. Well, I want to help. As much as I can anyway, Clementine said. Yeah. You've been a huge help. Carly offered the girl a smile. Clementine didn't respond. Clementine, Carly called. The girl let out a sigh. Yes? I wanted to talk to you, Carly told her. About? Clementine asked. I wanted to make sure you were okay, Carly informed. Of course I am. Why do you ask? Clementine asked. You seem stressed out, Carly said. And? Isn't everyone stressed out? Clementine replied. That's not the right word. Depressed seems more fitting, Carly said. I think I have the right to feel depressed. Just as everyone else does, Clementine told. Carly paused. That's true, but Clementine cut her off. We have to focus on surviving day in and day out. Clem. Sometimes I don't want to do that. I mean, what's the point? We're all gonna die anyway, Clementine said. Don't say that, Carly said. It's true. You heard what Ben said. Are we even going to be able to survive this? Or are we just avoiding the inevitable? Clementine said. Carly was at a loss for words. Clem, come on. We're heading out. Lily called. Clementine turned to walk away. Carly watched her, feeling worried about the young girl. This is bad idea, Clementine commented, making her way over to the others. Relax, Clem. I'm sure you're starving. You'll have a nice meal tonight, Kenny said. I'm fine, Clementine claimed. Yeah, right. Kenny scoffed. You're all skin and bones. We'll be back before you know it, Lily said to Ben and Carly. Carly nodded. Be careful. Kenny nodded. Will do. When they had arrived at the dairy, it looked completely untouched. It had seemed so peaceful. The last thing Sean expected was for Mark to end up with an arrow in his shoulder. Carly and Ben had returned to the motor inn to retrieve the rest of the group. Mark had offered to help reinforce the fence. Sean had experience with fences. He had expected the task to be an easy one, yet now both he and Mark were stuck behind the cover of nothing but a tractor, with bandits taking shots at them from the woods. When they made it back to the gate, they ran through. Andy caught sight of them and ran towards them. What's wrong? The electric fence came on. People started attacking us from the woods. Sean explained. Holy shit. Are you okay? Danny asked. Fucking bandits. They have no right being out on our property, Andy said. Oh my lord, gasped Brenda from the doorway. She rushed over. What happened to you, sweetheart? It was those bastards in the woods, Mama, Andy said. Yeah. I'll be all right once it's out, but damn, it hurts, Mark said. Hey y'all. Kenny called. Sean turned to see the other group member coming over. Mark. Oh my god, what happened? Katja asked. He was shot with an arrow. Sean explained. Christ. Are you gonna be okay? Lily asked. Yeah, I'm fine. I should just pull it out. Mark panted. Oh no, honey. Brenda's got you. Come on inside. We'll have you all sorted out, Brenda said. Brenda led Mark towards the house, Katja following after them. What kind of shit is this? Larry demanded. We ran into some bandits or whatever on the way up here. Sean explained. They gave us a lot of problems in the beginning. Killed a bunch of our farmhand, but we were able to get him to stop by making a deal, Andy said. You knew about these assholes? Kenny snapped. Food for protection. Not like we had much a choice, but they did stop hassling us, Danny said. God damn it. Carly said this place was locked down tight. Larry growled. I knew this was a bad idea. Clementine muttered. Look, I'm sorry, okay? They've never screwed with us like this. Listen, we may have had an agreement with those people, but we will not stand for this shit, Andy said. Ain't no way we're letting these sons o' bitches get away with this. Danny chimed in. You know where these assholes are? Kenny asked. They're hard to pin down, but I know where at least one of their camps are. Danny replied. That's good. We might as well scope them out, Sean said. Danny gave a nod. All right. When you're ready to head out, come find me. With that, the two brothers walked away. Lily scoffed. Bandits. Are you serious? This place isn't safe. We can't stay here. Not safe? This place is a hell of a lot safer than that damn motor inn. I think all of us and our guns can handle a couple of punks with bows and arrows, Kenny said. What we need to do is find a way to get our whole group out here to stay. Take this place over if we have to. Whoa. Cool your jets there, Rambo. These are nice people. Let's not do anything to get us thrown out before we eat. Larry calmly replied. I'm going to head out with Danny to deal with these bandits in a bit. You guys can try to make friends with Andy and Brenda, Sean said. Well, that's easy. I've got charm coming out of my ass. Larry responded. Lily rolled her eyes. Yeah, that's real charming, Dad. Where are Ben and Carly? Sean questioned. Since Carly and Ben ate some of the food on the way to get us, she volunteered to stay behind to watch the motor inn until we get back. Lily explained. Makes sense, Sean said. What now? Clementine asked. Might as well get comfortable, Kenny said. You can go play with Duck. Clementine sighed, knowing that really meant she was on babysitting duty. All right. Come on, Duck. I want to see how hard I can hit you with an acorn. I won't even cry, Duck said. The two walked off and Sean turned to the group. Everyone keep your eyes peeled. If you find anything fishy, don't be scared to let us know. Everyone nodded. After that, the group member walked away to explore the dairy. Sean caught sight of Clementine and Duck. Duck was busy tossing acorns into the air. Sean decided to talk to Clementine for a bit. He approached with a smile. Hey Clem. Hey, Clementine said. Wanna help me fix up that swing? It'll give Duck something to do. Sean motioned to the broken swing that was close by. Clementine shrugged. Sure. Sean nodded and went to examine the broken swing. How did it happen? Clementine suddenly asked. What? Sean asked back. How did Mark get shot? Clementine asked. Damn bandits in the woods, Sean said. Is he going to be okay? Clementine asked, looking worried. I don't know, kid, Sean said honestly. There was that word again. Kid. A constant reminder. Clementine sighed. Sean. Yes? Do you think things could ever be normal? Or close to normal again? Clementine asked. I would hope so, was Sean's response. Do you? I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore, Clementine said. I guess I wish. But wishing and thinking are two different things. Yeah. Silence fell over the two before Clementine spoke. We need a rope. For the swing. I'll check on the porch. Clementine headed towards the porch, searching for a rope. She soon found one. Perfect. Aren't you a pretty little thing? Clementine jumped at the sudden voice. She turned to see Danny. The man smiled at her. Don't worry. I don't bite hard. The girl swallowed nervously. What's your name? Danny asked. Clementine. The girl answered. Clementine. Danny repeated. Fits you. I wonder if you're as sweet as your name. Sweet? Clementine stammered. I bet you taste as sweet as you look, Danny said. Clementine looked to the man, with wide eyes. What? Danny said no more. He just walked into the house. Clementine watched as the door closed. That guy gave her the creeps. With the rope in hand, Clementine made her way off the porch and back to Sean. I found a rope. Great. I cut a new board for the swing, Sean said. He then noticed the worried look on the girl's face. Everything all right? Yeah. Clementine lied. You sure? Sean asked. I'm fine. Don't worry. Clementine brushed him off. Sean frowned. He could tell something was wrong. Clem. I really don't want to talk about it. So please, don't make me, Clementine said. Sean sighed at that, but said, okay. I'm going to tell Duck about the swing, Clementine stated. Sean nodded. He couldn't help but worry about Clementine. Sean watched as the girl went over to Duck and Kenny. He decided to go talk to Danny about finding those bandits. Sean walked up to the patio where Danny and Andy were sitting. Hey. Sean greeted. How you feeling, Sean? I'm really sorry you almost got killed out there. We should have told you how dangerous it was. Andy said. Yeah, that probably would have helped, Sean said. How's Mark doing? Mama's taking a look at him. He should be fine, Andy said. You saw what they did to your buddy. Nobody's safe here until we start to fight back, Danny stated. What's your plan? Sean inquired. The two of us should go out and do some recon, then we'll all mount up for some revenge, Danny said. Hell yeah. Andy piped up. So who exactly are these people? What do they want? Sean asked. We don't know. We think some of them used to work at the big box up the way, Andy said. Save lots. Danny added. Yeah. Anyway, they're nutty as hell. And get mad when they're hungry. Andy informed. So, are you ready to head out there and find their camp? Danny asked. Yeah. The quicker we do this, the better, Sean said. I'll stay here and hold down the fort. Andy remarked. Remember, we're just doing reconnaissance for now. No use getting ourselves killed. Danny noted. Danny grabbed his rifle and started walking towards the front. Sean followed him. Clementine was seated on a stump, staring at the ground while Kenny pushed Duck on the swing. She was glad Duck was having a good time, but she still couldn't feel comfortable, especially after what had just occurred with Danny. You want to turn Clem? Kenny asked. Clementine looked up to him. No. Why not? Kenny asked. Do I look like a kid to you? Clementine groaned. Want me to answer that? Kenny questioned back. Clementine rolled her eyes. She stood up, noticing Sean and Danny making their way to the front gate of the dairy. Clementine quickly headed over to them. Wait. Clem? You okay? Sean asked. I'm going to, Clementine said. No, kid. You stay here, Sean said. No way. You're not leaving me out again. Clementine crossed her arms. Clem. I'm going to, Clementine said, cutting Sean off. If the little lady wants to come along, I say let her, Danny said. All right. All right, fine, Sean sighed. The three wandered through the wood, following behind Danny. They stayed on their guard, searching for the bandit camp. See anything? Danny asked. Not yet. Sean replied. I know it's around here. It's gotta be close, Danny said. Sean looked down, seeing a small soup can close to his foot. The three kept walking. Here, Sean whispered, motioned to a camp right in front of them. Danny raised his rifle. Clementine placed her hand on her own weapon. Stay close, Sean said to the girl, who gave a nod. The trio used the trees as cover, as they moved closer to the camp. You see anyone? Danny asked. Sean shook his head. With the camp being clear, they left the cover of the trees. Watch my back, Sean. I'm going to check out the tent, Danny said. Danny approached the tent cautiously. The man then pulled down the flap. Clear. Danny muttered, this camp's too small. It can't be their main base. Right, Sean agreed. Take a look around anyway. There's probably some shit around here they stole from us, Danny said. Clementine and Sean both nodded in response. After looking through the area, they came up empty-handed on supplies. Sean did manage to find a box from the save lots however. What's in the box? Danny asked. Nothing, just boxes from the save lots, Sean replied. The first few days, they told folks to gather to the save lots by the interstate, Danny said. Sean continued to look around, finding a couple boxes from the dairy. Got some boxes from the dairy here. Probably the food we've been giving 'em. Fuckers crossed the line. Danny grumbled. Sean nodded. Clementine, meanwhile, made her way towards the tent in the middle of the camp. She looked into the tent finding a picture of a young child and a woman who she presumed to be the girl's mother. There was also a stuffed toy. Clementine picked up the rabbit. She didn't know why, but she wanted to hold on to it. What did you find? Danny asked. Clementine looked over at the sound of Danny's voice. A video camera, Sean replied. Let me see that, Danny urged. Sean pushed the play button, and unsurprisingly nothing happened. Battery's dead, Sean said. Oh, good, Danny remarked. Clementine furrowed her brows at that. Why was it good? What else they got over here? Let's see if we can find anything useful then get a move on, Danny remarked as he went to go search the table Sean had been at before. There's not much, Sean said. This seems like a waste of a trip. I wouldn't say that, Danny said. Clem, you find anything? Sean asked the quiet teen. Not really, Clementine said. Sean noticed the toy the teen was holding. What's that? I found it in the tent, Clementine explained. You just going to hold on to it? Sean asked. If that's okay, Clementine said. Sure, kid. Sean shrugged. Clementine continued to hold on to the stuffed toy, while Sean went back to searching around the camp. The girl ran her fingers over the stuffed animal's ears, before looking up, feeling as if someone was watching her. With a gulp, she put her hands behind her back self-consciously, when she noticed Danny staring at her. It wasn't the first time, but it didn't make her any less uncomfortable. She could feel his eyes on her continuously during the walk through the woods, but what bothered her out the most was how he would just stare at her. He'd just stare at her and wouldn't look away, not even when she locked eyes with him. She looked back to the man, seeing him offer her a smile that made her skin crawl. Clementine decided in that moment that the sooner they got back to the motel, the better. She surely didn't trust the St. John's, especially not Danny. Guess you are as sweet as your name. Danny suddenly chuckled. Clementine shuddered. Sean frowned, raising a brow at the other man. What's that supposed to mean? I'm just saying. She's pretty sweet, don't you think? Danny once again smiled at the teen, who quickly looked away. I see you handle that gun pretty well. You a hunter? He directed to Sean, changing the subject. No. Lily keeps us all on a regular training schedule, Sean said. Lily, huh? Sounds like she's running this group of yours, Danny noted. Sean decided not to respond. Don't you fucking move, came a voice. Sean turned to see a woman aiming a crossbow at him. Shit, Danny exclaimed. Put your guns down, the woman said. Sean raised his weapon. Clementine's eyes widened, her heart pounding. I ain't going back. You tell 'em Jolene ain't going back, the woman said. Hey. We had a deal. No shooting as long as we gave you food. What the fuck happened? Danny demanded. You had a deal with them. I ain't them, Jolene retorted. Clementine reached for her own weapon. She wasn't going to be a defenseless little girl. I know you. I know what you are. I know what you do, Jolene said accusingly to Danny. What are you talking about? Sean asked. You don't know me, Danny replied defensively. Steal my shit. Steal everything from me, Jolene yelled. Why are you alone up here? What happened to you? Sean asked. That's a hell of a question, mister. They told me I'd be safe with them, men who lived here. But it weren't safe. Not for me, and not for my girl. They didn't treat her nice. Not at all. They took her away, into the woods. Wouldn't tell me where. And I begged them. Every way I could think. They just laughed, so I killed them. Jolene laughed, a crazed look in her eyes. And I'm staying here till she comes back to me. One way or another, she'll come back. Now maybe you didn't hear me last time, when I asked you, sweet, put your damn guns down. Wait, we don't want any trouble, Clementine said. The woman's eyes fell on the girl and her gaze softened for a moment. You'll be fine, honey. You just get in the tent. I'll take care of you. What? Clementine was confused. I won't let them. I won't let them hurt you anymore. I promise, Jolene said. They didn't hurt me, Clementine said. I don't know what you're talking about. Jolene ignored the teen. As for you two, put your damn guns down, now. Jolene ordered. You think I won't kill you? I'm gonna take this here crossbow, and put a nice sharp arrow, right through your eyeball. And into your goddamn brain. Jolene grunted. You're not men. You're monsters. All men are monsters. Take what they want and destroy it all. Take a little can of beans, take a little girl, it's all the fucking same to you, Jolene said. Please, just put the crossbow down. We're not going to hurt you, Sean said. Liar, Jolene said. You know what? I changed my mind. I'm putting this arrow right through your balls. Yeah. Right through. String 'em up on that tree. Please, just listen, Clementine said. We want to help you. Shh. Shush now, honey. I'll be with you in a minute, Jolene said to Clementine. I won't let these evil monsters hurt you. What are you talking about? Clementine asked. People ain't nice. Not anymore, little girl, Jolene said. Go on, tell them, boy. Tell them what you got in mind for. A shot rang out, and Jolene fell over. Clementine screamed in horror, dropping the stuffed toy that was in her grip. What the fuck? Sean asked, shooting Danny a glare. God damn it. Danny remarked. You just murdered that woman, Sean said. Hardly. She had a crossbow pointed at my forehead. Danny replied. It's a clean shot through, right through the forehead. That's good shooting right here. Still, what a waste. Sean sighed, making his way over to Clementine. He pulled the whimpering teen into a hug. So what now? Sean asked Danny. We going back? If they ain't here, I don't know where they are. And it ain't a good idea to go tromping through the woods looking for them. So, yeah, we head back. Once they see this, they'll get the message, Danny said. Sean nodded, picking up the stuffed rabbit. He handed back to Clementine, who accepted it. Before placing a hand on Clementine's shoulder, he nudged the girl forward. Danny made his way to the crossbow, picking up the weapon. Sean gave Jolene one last look before the three walked away, heading back to the dairy. It was late afternoon and the remnants of the day were fading by time they got back. Man, that was a hell of a ride, huh? Danny asked. Sean sent him a look of disapproval. That was beyond fucked up. He tossed the gun back to Danny, who caught it with ease. What? You ain't getting soft on them, are you? Not after what they did to your friend, Danny said. Why, you didn't have to shoot her, Clementine said gently, clinging to the stuffed animal in her arms. That was so awful. Danny looked to the teen with a smirk. Thought you said you could handle it, little lady. Clementine lowered her head, not responding. She hadn't expected to see someone get murdered like that. Guess you're not as tough as you make out to be, Danny chuckled. What? Clementine asked. You must be sweeter than I thought. Danny smirked. Clementine felt so uncomfortable around Danny. The teen shuddered, looking away as Danny continued to stare at her. Sean noticed and frowned. He tapped the girl's shoulder, causing her to jump slightly. Clem, why don't you go let Katja and Kenny know we're back? Okay, Clementine said. Sean looked at Danny with a raised brow. What's up, man? Why you staring at her like that? She's pretty, Danny replied. Sean crossed his arms. She's a kid. Ain't nothing wrong with cradle snatching, Danny chuckled. Age is just a number. Sean wrinkled his nose in disgust. Please tell me you're joking. Danny didn't reply. Before Sean could say another word, Brenda called out from the porch. You're back. What happened? Handled it, Mama. Danny responded before walking off. Brenda sat on the stairs and Sean went up to talk to her. This isn't what Terry would have wanted, Brenda said with a sigh. Terry? Sean echoed. My husband. Miss him every day. Then screw it up for everybody then, why don't you? Lily's sudden yelling drew their attention. Sean noticed she and Kenny were arguing. Again. Oh, calm down, princess. I'll do it myself, Kenny said before storming off. Sean let out a sigh. Those two couldn't get along for 5 minutes. Wonder what the problem is. Brenda mused. Seems like there's a lot of tension with y'all, huh? They have different ideas about how we should do certain things, Sean said honestly. Don't worry about it too much. I understand. It's just tough times. Everyone's hungry and people get stir crazy when their tummy's empty, Brenda said. Sean gave a nod in agreement. And Sean, don't worry your head about them bandits. I'm sorry you've seen more violence than I'd have thought in your short time, but you all are safe here. Don't worry. Brenda said. Thanks. We really appreciate all your hospitality, Sean said. I'm going to go check in on the others. Don't wander too far. Dinner will be ready before you know it, Brenda informed. And thank your friend Katja again for me. She and her boy are in the barn with the cow. That woman is a lifesaver. Sean gave a nod in response before walking away. I'm being serious, Kenny. There's something off about him. Clementine made sure to keep her voice low, just in case anyone else was listening. Stop overreacting, Clem, Kenny said, brushing her off. I'm not. He gives me the creeps, Clementine said. No offense, darling, but why would he be looking at you that way? Kenny asked. Why don't you ask him? Clementine replied, crossing her arms. Why don't you settle down? Kenny retorted. But, Clementine, that's enough. I'm paranoid enough as it is. You're going to make me shoot somebody, Kenny said. Clementine sighed. Just forget it. With that, she walked away and went to go talk to Lily. Kenny furrowed her brows. Clementine had him feeling even more paranoid than before. Hey Clem. You okay? Lily asked. What happened at the camp? Did you find any more of those guys that hurt Mark? Clementine frowned, lowering her head and clutching to the toy she was holding. What's wrong? Lily asked, noticing the girl's reaction. It just feels weird here, Clementine replied. Like something's not right. What do you mean? Lily asked. I don't know, Clementine said truthfully. Danny was acting really strange at the bandit camp. Like he didn't want Sean to look around. Then he killed some woman there when she was trying to say something. Lily gasped. Holy shit. Was she one of those bandits? I don't know, Clementine said. He just shot her, and... Hey, it's okay, I understand. Lily cut the girl off. I just don't feel comfortable here, Clementine said. Especially not around Danny. He gives me the creeps. Has he done anything to you? Lily asked with genuine concern. No. He's just been staring at me a lot. It's really uncomfortable, Clementine said. I wouldn't worry about that too much. A lot of guys are just pigs, Lily said. Look, we won't be here long. Clementine gave an unsure nod in response. What are you two talking about? Sean asked, coming over with a curious look on his face. Look. This place may look safe. But who's to say it really is, Lily said. Clementine told me what happened at the camp. Clem, Sean said with a frown. Clementine looked away. I don't like this. I say we should go back to the motor inn where we at least know what to expect, Lily said. Sean sighed before asking, what were you and Kenny arguing about when we came back? Lily furrowed her brows, shaking her head. He's losing it. He comes over and starts talking about searching the barn and that these people are hiding something. Larry cut her off, but you told him to mind his own damn business, right? We are guests here, we don't need to be overstaying our welcome more than we already are. So you guys don't think it's weird that they specifically came to us for gas? Clementine piped up. Why would that be weird? Larry questioned the young girl. Think about it. Why come to us now? How would they know we were there, unless they were spying on us? Clementine asked. Clem, you're starting to sound just as bad as Kenny. Lily groaned. I have a point, and you all know it, Clementine said. Okay, maybe you do, Lily said. The way I see it, we just need to skip the dinner and get our food to go, but Kenny over there seems to have another agenda. Come on now, we don't want to be rude, Larry said. We can't be rude if we're dead, Clementine replied. Clem, hush. How about you go see how the cow's doing? Maybe Katja could use a hand with something. Okay, Clementine said. Sean waited until the girl had walked away before speaking. She's shaken up over what happened, and Danny didn't really help the situation. So, what she said is true. Lily huffed. The guy's a pervert. Damn pedophile. Look, he hasn't actually done anything, but I'm going to keep an eye on him, just in case, Sean said. Lily gave a nod. Probably for the best. And, if something is wrong here, I'll try to find out what, but we have to be discreet. The longer we stay here, the more trouble we're getting ourselves into, Lily said firmly. What do you want me to do about it? Sean asked. If you want to go in there and start rooting through people's shit, then fine. But if it's up to me, we should take our food and go, Lily said. You and Kenny are just asking for trouble. But if you insist on wandering around, I'd be careful, Sean. Sean gave a nod. I will. Good, Lily said. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to check on the others, Sean said. All right, Lily said. Once the conversation ended, Sean made his way over to the barn. As Sean entered the barn, he noticed Clementine and Duck petting the cow. He was glad Clementine had calmed down a bit after what happened. After a quick greeting with the others, Sean decided to check out the barn. He checked the stalls, which were all pretty much empty. However, the last stall was filled with old clothes. It had a foul smell as well. Sean quickly closed it, feeling paranoia hit him. He glanced to the back door, which appeared to be locked up tight. You found it too, eh? Sean turned to see Kenny approaching him. They're hiding something. Behind this door. I got a quick look. They got boxes of stuff. And something metal and sharp. Kenny's voice was quiet, but urgent. Hold on. We don't know that, Sean said, although he was starting to think Kenny was right. Don't get paranoid. It's my job to be paranoid. I got my whole family on this farm right now, Kenny said. And Clem told me about that guy making passes at her. If I have to shoot someone today, I will. Kenny, relax, Sean said. Clem's just anxious. You shouldn't have took her out in the first place. Kenny sounded a bit annoyed. She didn't even tell me she was going. Ken, you're not her dad, Sean said. And she's fine. She's not fine. She came back looking traumatized. Telling me that arsehole shot someone, Kenny said. Things just got out of control. But she's safe. That's all that matters, Sean replied. And what if she had gotten hurt? Kenny asked. She didn't. Let's not have this discussion now, Sean said. It wasn't the time or the place to be arguing. Fine, Kenny said. Silence fell for a quick moment before Kenny started to speak again. Look, that guy with cat jar, what's his name? He locked it up real tight the second we came in. I definitely heard a noise back there, Sean, Kenny said. My point is, we gotta know for sure. So go find a hammer, or something, and I'll have this thing off in a second. You back me up in case them farmers come running. Sean shook his head. As much as he wanted to know what was behind the door, he knew that was a bad idea. That's a bad call. Think this through. You smash the lock, and what if you're wrong? You just blow the chance to get a meal in those kids. All right then, Professor. What do you have in mind? Kenny asked. Sean turned his attention to the lock. Well? Kenny urged. Give me a second, Sean said as he continued to examine the lock. After a moment he spoke. Look, see those screws? Instead of breaking the padlock, we can just take off the assembly, have a peek inside, and then replace it all again, like nothing ever happened. All right. Sounds like you got a plan. I'll hang around and keep an eye on that guy with the cow, Kenny said. Andy, Sean said. Kenny looked surprised at that and swore, shit. I thought that was Danny. Whatever. Before Sean could respond, a voice called to them, Can I help you boys find something? Sean turned quickly to see Andy looking at them. Just checking out the barn here. Reminds me of my pop's place, Sean said. I see. Andy simply said. Okay, well, don't just roam around without me or Danny. The farm can be a dangerous place, you know, the bandits and all. Sorry about your friend. Hey, do me a favor. Don't fuck around with this door. Just, you know, Mama gets nervous. Andrew. I need your help again. Katja called out. No problem. Right away, Doc. Andy answered. Andy walked back over to the cow. Kenny and Sean exchanged a look. Now we need a way to distract Andy. Sean muttered. Right, but we need to get him outside the barn. What's going on? Clementine's voice drew their attention. Sean paused awkwardly. He noticed the teen was still carrying around that stuffed animal. I want to help, Clementine said. I don't know, Kenny said, speaking more to Sean than Clementine. I don't think it's a smart idea to get a kid involved. Clementine huffed at that. What is it, Sean? What do you want me to do? We need to find a way into that door, Sean whispered, motioning toward the door. Okay, why? Clementine asked. Kenny rolled his eyes, letting out a groan. I just said we weren't involving her. We just want to know what's back there, Sean said, ignoring Kenny. But we need Andy out of here to do that. Maybe I could do something with the generator, Clementine suggested. The two men raised a brow. Like what? Kenny asked. Turn it off. Those power the fences, so they're important. Andy would have to go fix it, Clementine whispered. You know how to work it? Sean questioned. Clementine gave a nod. Yeah. My dad was an engineer. I can handle it. All right. Don't get caught, Kenny said. I won't, Clementine said. I'll watch your back, Sean offered. Clementine nodded. Okay. Kenny headed back over to his family while Clementine and Sean made their way outside the barn. They could see Larry talking to Brenda on the porch, both of them were laughing. So what do you need? Sean asked Clementine. Hold on, Clementine said. Sean followed the girl over to the generator, keeping an eye out in case someone saw them. Well, for starters I need a screwdriver to get this thing open, Clementine said. Sean gave a nod. I saw a toolbox early, I'm sure there's a screwdriver in there. Well, can you get it? I'm not going to turn this thing off yet. I don't want anyone coming over, Clementine replied. All right. Sean headed toward the workbench a few feet away and opened up a toolbox. He managed to find a multi-tool inside. Perfect. He returned over to where Clementine was, handing the tool to the girl. Thanks, Clementine said. She took a quick look around, making sure no one was watching. I got your back, Sean assured. Don't worry. Sean moved a bit away, as not to draw suspicions, but kept an eye out. All right. Thanks. Clementine wasted no time in powering off the generator. The light on the electric fence near her turned off. The teen quickly unscrewed the front of the generator. She used the tool to remove the belt mechanism before closing the generator and quickly screwing it shut. She stood near the fence as Andy came out of the barn. Fucking Danny. Where did he find this piece of shit? Andy muttered, kneeling down to check the generator. He opened it up, and groaned. Fucking thing through a belt. Damn it. Andy continued to swear as he started working on the generator. Clementine looked to Sean, who motioned her to come over. He was now standing by the barn. Clementine causally moved from the fence and over to Sean. Clementine and Sean cautiously re-entered the barn. Did anyone see us? Clementine asked. No, don't worry, Sean said. I told you, I would keep an eye out and I did. Clementine sighed in relief. The teen tried to follow Sean to the back of the barn, but the man held out a hand to stop her. Clementine raised a brow. I want to help. You've done enough, Clem. Kenny and I got this, Sean said. Clementine frowned, a clear pout on her lips. Sean held out his hand for the tool. Clementine sighed before she passed Sean the multi-tool. Sean made his way to the back door, when suddenly a dinner bell rang out. Mom. Dad. Dinner time. It's dinner time, Duck yelled, jumping to his feet. Katja chuckled. Okay, honey. Let's get Dad. Duck ran over to Kenny, who had walked up beside Sean. Dad. Come on, let's eat. Kenny? Come along, honey. Kenny, come on, don't make the kids wait, Katja said. Clementine nearly rolled her eyes. She was starting to hate being addressed as a kid. I'll make an excuse for you. Get that thing off, Kenny whispered as he turned to leave. Clementine tried to stay back to help, however Kenny placed a firm hand on the teen's shoulders, steering her forward. Once they left, Sean turned his attention back to the door. He used a multi-tool to remove 4 of the screws from door. Sean slowly opened the door. What he saw inside shocked him. There was blood everywhere. On the walls, the floor, the tools. Weapons of all kinds were inside the room. It was a slaughterhouse. Boy, didn't you hear the bell? Sean whipped around to see Andy behind him. Dinner time, Andy said with a smile. What's with all the blood? Sean inquired, looking horrified by his find. Look. We have food here, but Danny and I still got to do a lot of hunting to keep everyone fed. When we catch something in the woods, we skin it and dress it back there. Mama doesn't like us to make a mess in the house, Andy said. Sean wasn't buying that. No way all that blood was from a hunt. So you see? Nothing to worry about, Andy continued. Sean opted to stay silent. Come on. I'm sure you're hungry, Andy said. Starving. Sean replied, trying to stay cool. Inside he was panicking. Andy quickly went to lock the door back up before the two headed towards the house. Inside the house, everyone was excited about having a meal. Brenda, you were an angel, Larry chuckled. Biscuits. Wow. Oh boy, Duck exclaimed. Excuse the mess. We had to block the back door after a walker got upstairs. Don't worry, that was a while ago and they ain't been back inside since, Andy exclaimed, motioning toward a bookshelf blocking back door. Sean gave a nod, noticing that Andy was armed. He frowned, but said nothing. Andy led him into the dining room where he hesitantly took a seat as everyone else had already done. Everybody sit down and I'll go get the meal, Brenda exclaimed cheerfully. This is a delight. I could eat a horse, Danny commented. Where's Mark? Clementine suddenly asked, the plush toy still in her lap. She didn't care if she looked like a child carrying that thing around, it made her feel better, if just a tiny bit. Now don't you worry about him. I've already brought some food up. You just let him rest, Brenda said, returning with the food. Well, that's good, Sean said. The food looks delicious. Clementine complimented. Almost as good as you, Danny said. The girl shifted slightly in her seat, feeling a bit uncomfortable. She picked up her drink and took a few sips from her cup silently before grimacing. She placed the cup down and gulped when she noticed Danny sent her a smile. She pushed the glass away as she suddenly felt what energy she had leached out of her. The teen was confused. Why was she so tired? Her head nodded forward a bit, and Kenny seemed to notice. Clem, you all right, hun? Kenny asked, looking concerned. I'm fine. The girl slurred. She felt a wave of nausea rush over her. You don't look so good, Lily said. You sure you're okay? I need to use the bathroom, Clementine said. Oh, sweetie. Bathroom's right outside in the hall, Brenda said. The girl forced herself to her feet, but as soon as she stood a wave of dizziness hit her. Reeling a little she nearly fell back into her chair, the stuffed rabbit falling from her grasp. Sean's brows drew together. Need some help? No. I'm okay, the girl swayed about as she made her way from the room. She nearly fell for a second time, but was caught in strong arms. Careful, honey. Danny's voice whispered in her ear. You don't want to hurt yourself. Clementine quickly pulled away, shivers going down her spine. Thanks. Want me to take you to the bathroom? Danny asked with a smile. I'm fine, Clementine said was more. She clumsily made her way out of the dining room. Clementine quickly made her way to the washroom, with stumbling steps. Upon reaching the bathroom, she lost her stomaching contents. She felt horrible. Flushing the toilet, Clementine made her way to the sink. Turning on the water taps, she cupped her hands, filling them with water before splashing some onto her face, trying to wake herself up. She had no idea what was going on. She couldn't chalk it up to period troubles. Her period had never made her feel so bad. Had she been drugged? Despite how bad she was feeling, Clementine couldn't help but worry about Mark. Was he okay? She figured it would be fine if she went to check on him. The teen's curiosity set in and she made her way upstairs. Her legs were unsteady and she had to practically crawl to the top of the stairs. Once upstairs she caught sight of a closet which she opened, seeing a bunch of used medicine, as well as a power cord on the ground. The teen plugged it up with shaky hands, wondering what it was there for and what it led to. She was surprised as a light came through a small hole in the wall. Looking around she spotted a closed door. She opened it and found herself in a bedroom. At first glance the room appeared to be normal, but as she looked to the ground she saw what looked like blood. The girl looked towards the bookshelf that was against the wall, and gasped when she seeing a light coming from under it. She tried to push it, with the little strength she had, which proved to be difficult, as she could barely walk straight at the moment. With a bit of struggle, she managed to move the bookshelf to reveal a door. With some hesitation, she opened it. All of a sudden, terrified with the fear of what she was seeing, Clementine let out a loud scream. The group sat around the table, looking worried. Sean picked up the stuffed animal the girl had been carrying around. He decided to hand it back to her once she came back. Clementine hadn't seemed sick before. Sean glanced to the girl's drink. Could something have been in it? Sean quickly shook the thought away. Surely he was overthinking it. Clementine was just sick. The girl was good at hiding things. Perhaps she had been feeling ill for a while. Besides, his own drink had been fine. What would be the point of them drugging a teenager? After several moments of waiting for the teen to return, Sean spoke. I'm going to go check on her. No. Give her some privacy, Brenda said. She'll be fine. In fact, I'll go see if she'd like to rest in one of the bedrooms for a bit. Before anyone could do anything, however, a loud scream filled the air.